Hello and welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Carissa. I'm associate faculty at the University of Arizona Global Campus. Our presentation today is called Improving Student Success, Why Open Access is Integral to Achieving Our Critical Student Goals. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with the TLC related materials. Microphones will be muted for the presentation, but we do encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we've enabled live transcription. If you would like to use it, click on the live transcription button at the bottom of your Zoom window. And now I'll let Stephanie go ahead and take over, and I'll sit back and enjoy.
Thank you, Carissa. Welcome, everybody. My name is Stephanie Kilby. I'm the Director of Student Success here at the University of Arizona Global Campus, and just so thrilled to be with you today. We have a tough act to follow for those of you that are coming from the plenary session with Dr. Koo, but this is such an important conversation. And I want to echo what Carissa said about the chat. Please use the chat function, post your questions. If you have a follow-up to something that I ask our panel, add it in there, and we'll be sure to work those in. We want this to be more of a conversation than a presentation. And so engagement is key here, and looking forward to what you have to share as well. So we're on day 3 of TLC, and there have been many incredible sessions on the power of open access, the need for open access, our responsibilities when it comes to open access. And I think we all can agree the value of education increases when it's accessible to a broader audience. Open access institutions do things like promote a culture of learning and knowledge sharing. They foster a community where education is seen as a shared resource rather than a privilege that is not afforded to all. This shift in perspective adds value not just to individual students, but to society as a whole. In essence, being an open access institution aligns with those principles of equity and inclusivity in education that we're all striving to provide, creates an environment for students where they can thrive, graduate, contribute positively to their community, to the economy, and to society. So if we agree on all of these things, the question becomes, how do we take the potential of open access and turn it into action? How do we apply these concepts and drive towards student success? So that's what we're going to focus on today for the next 45 minutes or so. And before we make additional introductions of the colleagues that I have on the screen with me, I would like to just set the stage for our conversation based solely on the open access institution that we're representing today, UAGC. And I think the best place to start is with our mission, with our purpose and our vision, which are at the heart of what we do, and with our 4 critical student goals, which if the others are the heart of what we do, the goals are our arms. It's how we embrace our students and help ensure their success. So I'd like to just read this. I'm not really one for reading things to audiences, but I think there's power in the words that we all, come to work every day to strive towards. Our mission at UAGC is to provide a community of caring and guidance for academic, financial, mental health, and career support, while providing a path that makes quality college education accessible to adult learners through online, flexible degree and certificate programs. I mean, that has open access written all over it, right? It's right there in our mission. We're here to afford that opportunity. Our purpose is to transform the higher education landscape and make it accessible for everyone, no matter their background or circumstance. And our vision is just to empower and support, enrich and graduate every student. And we do that through our 4 critical student goals, which is to retain our students through their first year, to support completion of programs and educational goals, to offer high-value credentials with marketable skills, and to enhance students' economic return. It's 4 different things, and the goals do not stand alone. We don't use those goals to say we're trying to hit a number. We're trying to do one thing for our students. We're trying to say we want to provide a holistic experience that gives you high quality, affordable education that you can take with you out into the world. And so it's important for us to think of open access, the students that we're inviting in, what our responsibility is to provide that experience. And finally, I just want to share a few notes about our student body. We have many at-promise students. They are across the United States. They are around the globe. We have a large percentage of students who are employed. We also have many students who are not employed, students working multiple jobs. We have students across race, ethnicity, gender. We have students who are parents, who are caregivers. We have students who experience insecurities like food insecurity, homelessness. These are just a few of the many things that we can use to describe our students. But at the very heart, it's that diversity that we celebrate. We strive for success not in spite of who our students are, but because of who they are. Okay, so enough from me. That sets the stage for why we're here and why this is an important topic to discuss. And what I'd like to do is introduce to you three of my colleagues who are here with me today. And I'm going to have them introduce themselves because I'd like them to just give us a picture of their role, which is spread across our university in many functional areas. So an introduction of the role and also just a thought or two that they have about why open access matters. So Rebecca, I'd love to start with you.
Yes, thank you for having me today, Stephanie. Super excited to discuss this topic. I'm Rebecca, Career Services Manager at UAGC, and my team includes two groups. The first are the career advisors who support students through all phases of their career development. And I'll talk about that a little bit today and what that looks like, but everything from assessments to resume reviews to job search, and done in several different formats. And then I also have the employer outreach team who connects with employers all across the nation who are interested in building their brand at our university and connecting with students who they may possibly recruit to their full-time positions, part-time positions, or internships. And I'm excited to discuss this topic and from the lens of career services, really passionate about serving this population of students. And what that includes is their unique career development needs that may look different from traditional or do look different from our traditional students on campus. The barriers they may face in their job search look different, their exposure to career pathways look different, and our role in career services is to meet their needs where they're at in a unique way. And so excited to discuss that today.
That's so great. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Lindsay, would you like to share?
Sure, thank you. Hi, I'm Lindsay Devine, Senior Director of Learning Resources and Products at UAGC. And in this role, I oversee a custom e-textbook publishing team, the procurement and distribution of third-party content, so essentially the operation of an inclusive access bookstore, and a suite of e-reader and publishing applications. So given kind of those roles in a traditional university, it may seem kind of like a contradiction when I personally talk about open access and kind of our goals, but really I think my aim is to foster a really holistic learning resources strategy so that we can ensure, not only high quality and effective course resources, but seek those more affordable resources for our students where we can and where it makes sense. So in collaboration with the library and our faculty, the learning resources teams are, trying to seek those open resources, help create them where possible, to, reduce financial barriers, and also thinking about how we can adopt and create course resources with a broader range of voices and perspectives to also support our DEI goals.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. And I have so many questions I'm really excited to dig into with you because I think what jumps out at me is thinking about affordable and high quality. The two don't always go hand in hand. So how do we ensure that we're providing both? So happy to have you here. All right, Justin, you want to round us out?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Justin Harrison. I'm the Dean of the School of General Studies. And for those who maybe haven't heard, this is a newly formed school. We have moved the high enrollment general education lower division courses over into the school, along with the leadership team that was formerly the Academic Engagement Center, Mingjin Bao, Ali Reef, and Jen Vogel, and then all of the faculty that were part of the AEC. We're also tasked with creating more pathways into the institution, potentially new programmatic offerings, and meaningful credentials along the way that help student success. As I think about I love working at UAGC for 4 months. No, but this is where I want to be, and this is where I've always been, and always where I've wanted to be. I taught at some open enrollment schools like universities like the University of Toledo, And I taught at some community colleges, like in downtown Chicago, and outside of Chicago in the suburbs. And so I've always just, I'm from a small farming community, pastoral Indiana. And, our community was just working class folks, farmers, and people who worked in factories and went to public school, and just saw the power of education for people, and also how lack of education can lead to some negative outcomes in the future. When I return to where I grew up and I see some people who are coming out of jail or in jail and things like that. And so I've always loved just working with students who have real lives and and have to work hard and can experience the liberation that can come from education. So that's why open access is important to me. I really feel like if you think about in life the things that can actually liberate and make your life better, even like, like whether it's money or power or family or whatever, like education is one of those things that nobody can take it away from you, and it almost always leads to positive outcomes, whereas some of those other things can be corrupted. So this is where I want to be, and I'm just really thankful to be back at UAGC.
That's incredible, Justin. Thank you for sharing. I am going to have to ask you, though, to reserve any future mic drop moments for the end of the presentation, because you just wrapped that up so nicely for all of us. I do want to take just a moment. We have one panelist who was not able to make it here today due to unforeseen circumstances, and I know he would do anything he could to be here, but I want to take a chance just to introduce him so that you're aware that we have this person at our institution, because he has an incredible role. And his name is Tim Cerato. He is our VP of Student Relationship Technologies. And in nearly every TLC session I've been part of, technology comes up, digital experience comes up, the digital divide. And so his role is crucial for us. He's been in the industry for over 10 years with a track record of building high-performing teams, growth strategies, all around transforming the digital experience and ensuring an innovative adoption of the technologies that we have to make sure that students can access the technologies, understand how to use them, and then use it to really enhance their experience. So there's more information about Tim on his speaker bio page in the Whova app. So I encourage you to take a look there, and certainly reach out to him if there are things that you came today to hear his perspective on. I know he'd be happy to engage. But with that, I want to jump into some questions that I have for this group, because this is a great opportunity for me to hear from all of you and learn from your experience and your perspective. And again, I'll encourage everyone in the audience to add their questions as we go. But Justin, you talked about your experience a little bit, where you grew up, what you saw all around you. And we talked about the diverse population at UAGC. So could you share some examples maybe of how UAGC as an open access institution can positively impact what might be historically underserved populations of students?
Yeah, and so one thing I thought about related to this, if you look at one of our old WASC letters, or one of our own institutional reviews, there used to be a website like Diversity in Higher Ed, or I was trying to find it. I couldn't find it again. I mean, it still exists, but, and, in our heyday, we were like the #1 ranked institution for production of graduates across multiple racial categories, race and ethnic categories. And now, of course, our enrollments have come down from the 90,000 range, right? So, but we are producing we're contributing to equity in the workplace and in the job market and in life by the production of grads who have credentials, and a lot of students, from underrepresented groups. And so that's one thing that we are doing, and we have historically been doing, in the top 10 institutions, or probably now top 20, given our lower enrollment in the United States. And it's something that I think we all really focus on. I mean, you just look at all the grads every day that students are graduating, every time a class ends, students are graduating, and they're walking away with a credential that means something. And hopefully they believe that what they've done is meaningful and improving their lives. So there's the equity in the job market and with opportunity. But some of the other groups that have been underrepresented historically are military, right? So with the advent of online education, the GI Bill and all of these other things that are, that are applicable to military veterans benefits and all that, people can actually use them, right? And they can use them while they're actively deployed. Before online education, you couldn't take a class when you were actively deployed because you had to be on a campus, right? So that, we open up possibilities there. And of course, there are a lot of schools opening up possibilities in that realm. The final thing I'll say is underrepresented group would be people who have jobs and kids. And that's irregardless of race or ethnicity or military status or whatever. If you work 40 to 60 hours a week and you have children, you have been underrepresented in higher ed because, traditionally people have to show up to campus during regular working hours. And I'll just share one story. I went to the Airgas. Airgas is a company that we have a partnership with, and they have a graduation event specifically for their students. I think there were about eight of their employees that graduated, and Jim Jeremiah did a great job. He spoke at the session, but there was one guy in particular. He'd been with the company like 30 or 40 years. He started as a truck driver. Now he's a VP that he oversees like a $300 million portfolio in, I think, like Eastern Texas and the southeastern United States. And he just got his bachelor's degree, right? So, it's just amazing to think about, how many bachelor's business students across the United States are overseeing $300 million portfolios and like 1,000 employees? Probably not very many. But also, this guy would never have been able to get his degree, right, in a traditional context. Like, he's working all the time. He has this huge responsibility. And so I think about students like that and how we're helping with the underrepresentation for those who have jobs and other responsibilities like family.
Absolutely. It's making it accessible and making it possible. Students don't always even think it's possible. Justin, you said something that made me think of a question I'd love to ask Rebecca, actually. You mentioned high value credentials, which is our critical student goal number 3, making sure that a degree from UAGC means something, that it's worth something in the marketplace. And Rebecca, in terms of career services, it makes me think of, it's one thing to make sure that we're providing it, but what's our responsibility to make sure that students can speak to it, that they can speak to the skills that they grow and really champion themselves in the workplace? How does career services utilize open access resources to provide that type of guidance for students?
Great question. With career services, or career development in general, there are tons and tons of resources out there for job seekers, whether it's ChatGPT, Instagram posts, blogs, podcasts, they're everywhere. And what makes it difficult, though, is for our busy students to pull that all together and differentiate what's accurate, what is most needed, and do I have time to go through all of this? And so what we really strive to do in career services here for our students is curated content specific to UAGC students and alumni. And as an open access institution, we serve a wide variety of students and their career goals in career services. There's the career changers, and then there's students breaking into their first corporate job. And then there's also our tuition benefit students who are looking for ways to manage their career. There's really no one size fits all. And so what's important for us to do as an open access institution is make sure that career services is free and unlimited. And that does differentiate us from other institutions who may have, you get 3 appointments with career services and then good luck, you're on your own. And so what we try to do is understand that our students are coming to us at all different phases at different times in their career development process. We have juniors that are asking the question, what do I do with my major? And so they're taking an assessment. Or we have freshmen that say, I'm ready to do an internship right now. What does that look like? And so trying to meet everyone's needs is what we strive to do. And we do that in a few different ways. We have resources called Pathways, which live in UAGC Connect, and I'll just talk about that briefly, but that allows a student to walk through each phase of their career development process in a resource that is specific to their program of study. So built within their assessments and their resume support and their networking skills, we have niche job boards and resume templates specific to their program of study. So that's one thing that we offer students, but that's not what everyone needs. So we have access to candid career videos that they can get to. We also have Handshake. We're super excited about our partnership with Handshake. That's our career management system. The thing is, all job seekers, regardless if they're at an institution or not, have access to Handshake. But what we try and do is we do have a UAGC account for all students and alumni, again, free, accessible at all times, but it's curated content specifically for our UAGC students and alumni. Right now, there's 21,000 job postings in there, from internships, part-time work, full-time work. We're even seeing some seasonal work from companies like UPS. But these are organizations that are specifically looking to recruit UAGC students in our non-traditional population. And that's what sets it apart from trying to navigate through Indeed or Career Builder or LinkedIn jobs. And the last thing I will say about, open access resources, I think the most valuable thing that we really try and serve our student population is our career coaches. Again, unlimited access to their career advisors to meet students where they're at, because research shows and feedback is given that students from marginalized communities or first-generation college students, what they really want to do is just talk it out with someone. They may know the answer to the question that they have, like, what can I do with my major? And thinking about changing majors, but sometimes they just want to talk it out with someone to validate the direction that they're going in. And so at the end of the day, I think that's the most valuable resource we have for our students.
That's incredible. And the work that you and your team do is so important. I know one of the challenges that we have is getting students to the resources. We have these incredible resources. How do we get them to engage with them and see that value? We have a broad range of attendees today who work with students, who may be students. What would you say, Rebecca, is the right time for somebody to refer a student or themselves over to your team to learn about some of these resources? Beginning of their tenure, later on?
We say early and often. That's never too early to connect with career services. Like I said, we have resources that start at we have 5 self-assessments that they can take for free to find out, what are their strengths, what do they bring to the marketplace, to career management resources if they're looking to grow in their career. So we absolutely say early and often. If they're expressing to an advisor, to faculty, I recently lost my job, I'm struggling, I don't know if I can stay in school, that's absolutely a time you can refer to career services. But because we do have those part-time roles or seasonal roles, and what's important to know is we did make a stance just a couple months ago to align ourselves with NACE, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, that to help this equity divide is we are only posting internships that are paid, because the unpaid internships really are not beneficial to historically marginalized communities. And so at any point, you can refer to career services and we're able to help, whether they're ready to graduate and get started in their job search, or they're looking for something right now to gain that experience. Anytime to answer your question.
All right, everybody, you heard her. We need to get those referrals over there. So I want to shift gears just slightly. We talked about career services and how that's crucial to supporting our critical student goal number 3, high value credentials, but it also leans into number 4, which is enhancing students' economic return. When I think about economic return, I'm also thinking savings. So Lindsay, we touched on this during introductions, but can you share a little bit more from your perspective about verifying credibility of open access resources? How do we ensure that quality while still making it affordable for students?
Yeah, so the lots of thoughts here, but we use the same digital literacy skills that we encourage our students to use when we're evaluating any resource or piece of content. What's the source of the information, who authored it, was it peer reviewed? But really we have resources to help faculty evaluate that. So I would just encourage people to reach out to our resource librarians that are well versed in not only evaluating the credibility of resources, but also understand the various licensing and copyright designations. There's lots of different kinds of open access resources, and it can be challenging to know like what you're looking at, how you are allowed to use it. So our teams are certainly educated and equipped to help evaluate the resources in terms of, their credibility and their quality, but also what potential is there in terms of how it can be used. Can it be remixed? Can it be modified?
I think you make a great point too about the faculty role, because certainly you have this fantastic team that tries to source these materials. Can you just talk a little bit more about the role of faculty in promoting these materials, and how can we encourage the engagement around that?
Mm-hmm. Well, the faculty they're the subject matter experts, so they're the best equipped to really find and evaluate the resources, or vet those that maybe the library or the learning resources team recommends, to make sure they meet the needs of the course and and our students. And because open access materials are free for students to use, they certainly cost in terms of the time that it takes to find them and curate them and modify them, and host them and all of those things. So it's faculty need to see the value in open resources and have the desire to put in that effort. And if they do that, then it's critical that they share those experiences with their peers, which a lot of that has happened this week at TLC. I've seen multiple presentations where faculty are sharing how they've adopted OER or other open access resources in their courses. So that's really invaluable to show and encourage, other faculty to do the same. But beyond these more like homegrown adoption and promotions, we're considering other ways to help encourage and incentivize faculty to participate. Some institutions are already doing things like offering stipends for faculty that adopt or create open resources. Some institutions use course marking or badging systems in their catalogs to show which courses have open resources. So, we're looking into some of those options as well.
That's amazing. Justin, is there anything you'd add from a faculty role perspective, or anything happening in the School of General Studies that you'd like to highlight in that area?
Yeah, right now there's a project that's just nascent, but it's creating a kind of a reader platform that we would host OER resources in. Lindsay can speak. Lindsay, do you want to take that?
I believe you're referring to Gen 104.
Yeah.
So, we're fortunate at UAGC that we have an internal publishing team. And so, using some open resources that are out there in various locations, bringing them into a single reader, adding some, new content, kind of bridge and pull all of the content together, and then hosting that and delivering that in our e-reader so that students have, a place to access all of those various resources.
Yeah, so that's one thing we're doing, and that will reduce costs from the current Constellation costs for students over time. And then I would just say for faculty, there's a lot of other open access resources. I just go to YouTube, right? I listen to hours of stuff on YouTube every day. Now it needs to be ADA compliant, and if we, when we use YouTube resources, sometimes people pull them off the site, right? And then if it's integrated into the class, then that causes problems because we have to find an alternative resource and things like that. But I would just encourage faculty, if you're interested in it and it relates to your class and you're listening to something, share it with students, right? You can informally share these things with students through email or through announcements. I always think about that with faculty, right? Like, if you're writing a class or creating a class or content and the topics don't interest you, the discussions don't interest you, you need to write, questions and assignments that interest you, right? Like, or else it's just going to be a nightmare grading it. And usually the things that interest faculty often will interest students too. So if you're interested and you're engaging with open content, YouTube, whatever it might be, articles that you just find, share them with your students and promote that.
That's great advice. Justin, one of your team members a few weeks ago shared something with me, and it really stuck in my mind, and I've been thinking about it, and I'd love to get your thoughts. And what she said was that during an interview, the interviewee made a comment that was along the lines of, marginalized students come to higher education as a gamble instead of as an investment. And I think when we think economic return, we think, what's my return on my investment? Perhaps our students, though, aren't seeing it that way. What are your thoughts on this? Do you agree? And how do we shift that mindset?
I think most humans don't understand investing, right? Like if I said to this group, do you invest in the stock market, and what criteria do you use to evaluate companies or businesses? Or do you know what a mutual fund is? What's the difference between an ETF and a mutual fund? Most people wouldn't be able to answer those questions, right? So it's not just students, and it's not just marginalized populations, but those populations even more, right? Probably have that lack of thinking. I wouldn't. You just approach your life through the lens that you've been taught, right? So if people around you don't invest or they don't save money or whatever it might be, you're not going to think that way. And especially if you're going day by day. I mean, I think it's a hasty generalization to say our students approach this as a gamble, right? Some do, some don't. Some think of it as an investment, others don't. Sometimes we do get the students that are like, I'm paying for this. Well, you can't give me an F. I'm paying for this. I'm paying your salary. Like, so that, they think of it almost as like a transactional bargain, like buying like a candy bar or something, which it's different, right? Education is this strange thing that we pay for where it relies on you. If you pay for a ticket to SeaWorld, you get to go in and you see the animals and pet the fish and all that. You pay for something and you get something in return. Education is strange. It's we get the services, we get the resources, and we get the support from faculty. But ultimately, like, you're paying for something that's ethereal, right? Knowledge doesn't exist as a physical object unless we instantiate it, like, through the written word or in some type of technology or something. So I think, anyway, you can see this is a really interesting question, and I'm kind of going down a path. For an investment to be good, there has to be a payoff that's greater than the amount put in, right? And so if we just turn this back around on us, I think recently that, the average tuition loan that our students are taking, our graduates are taking, is around $20,000. Don't quote me on that. That means, and we know that a lot of our graduates come in with transfer credit and they're only here for about 24 or 25 months, right? But there's a whole range. So is a $20,000, $30,000 investment worth the potential outcomes? And I think it's really important for us as an institution to determine if it is, and to figure out, like, are our programs leading to better opportunity, better jobs? Like Airgas is another great example. All of those people, one of them got a master's and the other 7 got bachelor's degrees. And they are doing better in their company because of that, right? There is more opportunity for them, and that's great. And we need to just continue to make sure that the investment and the money that is spent ends up being an investment, whether or not students view it that way or not. Because, I mean, that's one of our critical goals, right? Like you mentioned it, Stephanie, like that is one of the pillars of our institution now. Sorry, I'll just keep going. Just bear with me for 30 more seconds. As we think about new program development, we need to think about this too, right? So there's a huge, I just read an article on there's not enough electricians. There's not enough plumbers. There's not enough HVAC people. There's not enough cooks. There's not enough, all of these medical assistants, respiratory therapists, occupational therapists. There are a lot of places where I feel like we need to go institutionally if we're really going to commit to these credentials, right? And it might not be a 4-year degree, bachelor's of arts or whatever. We might choose to go down a path where we extend out vocational education, like maybe beyond what community colleges are providing. Higher level we probably won't do welding, right? Like, because we're online. But anyway, like, there are a lot of great jobs. And I think in our society, people think, I have to go to college and get like a 4-year degree, when you can make $60,000, $70,000 coming out, becoming an electrician, and then it goes up from there, and some people don't want to read philosophy. They want to work with their hands. Some people like to tinker. Some people like to rebuild engines. I mean, just think about what's going to happen with the car industry as electric vehicles roll out and things get more technical. And anyway, I'll stop there, but I just think about those avenues are places where we can say, this student got this job with this amount of money. They paid $20,000 here. Overall, they're going to make their money back in the next 3 or 4 years.
I think those are the threads that it is important for us to follow, because that's how we ensure that we're meeting students' needs, not what their needs were 10 years ago, but their needs now and what they're going to be looking forward into the future. There's a great conversation happening in the chat right now between Allie and Diana. I just want to touch on. And Allie had written that she thinks a lot of the feeling of the gamble comes from emotional trauma associated with prior education, which Diana agreed with. So certainly we have a large number of students who are bringing in transfer credit, bringing in prior experience, maybe some good, maybe some experience not so good that they're trying to overcome. And it makes me think not just of our economic return goal, but our first two goals, which is to retain during the first year, which is a crucial point in a student's tenure, and then on to completion and earning that degree. And I just wonder, if I'm a student and I'm looking at this as a gamble, is it easier for me to walk away when it gets tough, when there's challenges that maybe I don't think I can overcome because I'm not seeing the long-term investment? I'm saying, I gave it a shot and it just didn't work out. So it's easier for me to step away. Any additional thoughts, or Rebecca and Lindsay, if you would want to weigh in?
Can I just say one more thing? Sorry. Because I'm really passionate about this financial literacy. And I know that we have financial literacy, I think in HWE 200, health and wellness or introduction. I really feel like this is a great opportunity for us to teach students, right? I would love to see a financial literacy curriculum for our students so that we can transform the way that they approach their occupations, what they do with their money, how they save, get over the fear of like not knowing how to evaluate stocks and what a mutual fund is, and understanding like how interest works and how, if you have a 7% versus a 3% loan, now you're paying $1,000 extra a month on a mortgage, or what I mean? There's just so much opportunity for us to like overcome that lack of knowledge and that lack of experience through like really intentional financial literacy. And it's empowering, right? Because then people can think like, oh, I'm in control of my money and I know what's happening to it. And I know that I'm saving for a better future or something like that, or I know how to save for what I want for my children and all of that. Sorry.
Yep.
I'll shut up.
Absolutely. And Susan is saying in the chat, Biz 215, send them over to Forbes. They have a course. It can be an elective. Let's plug it for our students, because you're right, there is great value there. Rebecca, Lindsay, anything more you'd add to that conversation?
I would say, the research does show that first generation students are historically marginalized populations. One of the main reasons, and it's not the only reason, but one of the main reasons that they do pursue higher education is for a good or better job. And that's what they're looking for. So it is our responsibility, I feel, as an open access institution to meet those students where they're at. But it is funny because we had a alumni panel last night. It was 3 alumni from the behavioral sciences, and they were just talking about how they navigated after their degree, what they're pursuing now. But what they really hit home was their gen ed courses. Like I came to pursue this career path, or I came to make this career change. But you know what I'm using every day? Skills I learned in my gen ed courses, or critical thinking. It doesn't come top to mind probably when students are saying, this is why I'm going back to school, but they're realizing the value in different ways post-graduation. Of when I have one-on-ones with my staff, I really dig into those psychology courses I had, or when I am researching data for proposal at work, I use my critical thinking skills. They're really able to quantify and identify it after graduation. That was fun to hear.
That's amazing. Great example too, where I think the saying is something like hard to see the forest for the trees. Like when you're in the thick of it, it's hard to make the connections. And then later on, it's like, aha, it's all coming together. Lindsay, I'll give you a chance if you have any final thoughts on that particular.
Yeah, I was just thinking, sometimes it's hard, Justin's very passionate. We're talking about really like big picture stuff, and it feels weird to think about like, well, let's talk about the textbook. And sometimes our efforts just seem small, or we're not hearing a lot of fuss from students about the cost of their textbooks. At least it's making its way to me. So sometimes it feels, I guess my point would be, even those little tiny tweaks can really make a difference. And Stephanie, to your point of that student that's maybe like, okay, I gave it a shot, I'm going to bail out of here. If we can even remove some of those smaller barriers, like the MAT, a MAT fee for a Pearson textbook or something, that would just make it that much more likely, even if it's just a little bit, that they're going to, continue in that single course and then the next course. So yeah, I guess just trying to see how to be motivated to make these minor adjustments that can really add up to encourage these students to just continue.
Absolutely. And every dollar counts, right? It's hard sometimes to maintain that perspective of our students, or to really know what they're experiencing, or what is that amount. But I think of last year, some of us had the opportunity to attend some sessions by Dr. Donna Beagle, and she had a speaker, and I don't remember who it was, so shame on me, but he spoke about a community college system in Texas, and they had done some research, and they had found that the breaking point for students in terms of what is that dollar amount that could take them off course, what's that emergency situation, was something like $86. An unexpected $86 event, a car repair, a child care issue, whatever that might be, was causing them to leave school. And I think, what is that amount for our students? And certainly it varies. We have any range of students. Oh, go ahead, Lindsay.
I was going to say, that's funny or ironic. That is the average MAT fee for our courses right now, is between $86 and $90.
There you go. One fee that could make the difference. So we might think that what we're doing is too small to make a large impact, but it's just not true. Everything that we do that's in an effort to enhance our student experience and outcome is worth it. So I want to shift gears slightly and talk about something that I'm very excited about, which is what's next. What's the future? What are those trends? And Rebecca, I'd love to open it up to you. Are there any emerging trends or innovations in open access that you see coming through your lens that might further enhance student success?
I'll call out two. The first is the very popular topic of AI, and then I'll talk about personalization at scale, and I'll try and keep it brief. But the world of career advising and higher education has quickly been tossed in the pool of figuring out generative AI at a very fast pace. And in career services here, we've been trying to navigate the last few months. How can students utilize AI and systems like ChatGPT in their job search as a great starting point for maybe career exploration? But the question always begs, and what other universities are asking, is how can we trust what we're being told and manage this information? And so one exciting innovation that is coming out, and it's through our career management platform, Handshake. In 2024, they're implementing AI-powered tool that presents as a chatbot called Coco. I don't know why Coco, but it uses systems like ChatGPT and others within the Handshake platform to provide guidance around goal setting, career planning, research, industry information. However, with more guardrails than ChatGPT currently has, because they say like ChatGPT hallucinates, it has personas, it tries to make up information a lot of times. And so what this will do is stop it from doing that, because it's within the Handshake system. And as a career team, we can feed it information as well. And if a student is asking a question about how do I refine this bullet point on my resume, it can give that information, but also say, check out this module career services provided, or contact your career advisor for more support. So we're excited that's coming. And then the personalization at scale is also part of that is coming from Coco. We will be able to see what are the questions our students are asking, and then try and really dig into what exactly are our students looking for and how can we help them. And also, when our students use Handshake, we're able to glean very valuable data points around their career interests, what jobs they're applying for, their career needs, where they're looking. And And so being able to use that information to really provide the career support that our students need is something that we're able to do with our system with Handshake. And I'll just say it's been exciting. We made the transition 2 years ago, and they promised us you'll see an increase in your students using it, and they are. We are outpacing our peer institutions with usage. And I think I know a lot of that has to do with the way that it's being integrated into curriculum. It's really helping support students having access to more resources. So there's more to come, and we're excited about what 2024 has to bring.
That's incredible. We'll have to come back same time next year and get some updates for you. Well, I want to close out with the final question and then just ask the audience if there's anything more they'd like to hear from all of you. But the question that I have is this: when considering student success as it pertains to our 4 critical student goals, what do you believe is the most significant challenge that's facing UAGC as an open access institution? Or perhaps what do you think is our greatest opportunity? Lindsay, can I start with you?
Sure. Well, from my lens, I would say financial stability or sustainability, or the ability to secure funding or resources is the obstacle I think we're trying to navigate right now. So the opportunity is, gaining the support from leadership and getting creative on how you can show that whatever your open access initiative is that may be requiring resources or may initially impact revenue is worthwhile and justifiable, so that, we can work toward the ultimate goal. So I think that's, I'm sure that applies to others as well that are trying to show, that ROI and make the case for why some of these open access ideas are worth exploring.
Thank you. Rebecca, what are your thoughts on challenges and opportunities?
I would say for this one, it's not much different than other institutions. It's, which we mentioned earlier, students accessing co-curricular supports like CHAMPS and student engagement and clubs and organizations, career services. They are there, and we have the support, and the data shows that, for example, when a student does reach out to career services and they utilize career services, they do eventually see that economic return, or they do see that, the value in their institution. Their NPS scores go higher when they're utilizing those supports. And so it's something that I think every institution struggles with, and we're no different in that area. But we're trying.
Thanks, Rebecca. Justin, thoughts?
Yeah, I think that I would love to see us have to be the ultimate producer of high value credentials across the world in United States, right? Like hundreds and thousands of students and open access and supports and all that stuff. I think though that when you are open access and when you have our history is going to be something that we need to continue to overcome, whether or not it's valid, the critiques of our history. There is a narrative that an institution like ours, or what we formerly were, is simply just a vessel for manipulating people from, like we were talking about. It's marginalizing the marginalized more, right? And we've seen that narrative over the last decade. So there's this conundrum, right? We want more students to join us. We want to provide more supports, but then we have a certain group who views us as preying on the weak and the powerless. And we will continue to move past that, and we will show our value by ensuring the success of our students. But it's really important that we get compared to similar institutions, right? And we've been hanging out around 40% retention for the last, 10 years, right? And it's getting better, right? It's cohort retention. Our graduation rate has been pretty similar, is that going to be okay? Is that enough? Or will that be interpreted as a failure, right? Is it a failure to lose 60% of students in their first year? Or can we let people on the outside know that actually they're not lost? They took a break because their child got sick. They have cancer. They moved on to another institution with 30 credits that they earned at our institution, and their life is better. There are so many individual stories that I think we just need to continue to tell our story, but we also need to be compared to like institutions, and I'm not saying that any of those perspectives are valid, and I'm not saying that anything wrong was done. I'm just saying that I think it is going to be a hurdle for our institution, especially as we integrate with a more traditional institution where some of those people think the same things about us. But I think it's a great opportunity. This is the best thing, just being on the outside and coming back into UAGC. We are Arizona now, right? We are this close to being nonprofit. We are, there's all of this stuff where we have the opportunity now to continue to be who we are, but to be who we are in a space that's more accepted and where I think we'll have more sympathy from external folks.
Such great points. And it makes me think of, what an awesome opportunity TLC is for us. What an awesome opportunity we have as many of us go out to other conferences and webinars and present, and we have a chance to tell our story. Because for the most part, when we invite people in and they hear what we have to say and they see what we do and they understand the passion and what drives us, they end up championing us. So how do we tell our story on a broader stage, and how do we really help people understand the value of saying yes to students that perhaps other institutions might say no to, and giving them that chance? We have just a couple of minutes. There's one question in the chat I'd love to touch on. So I'll open it up to any of the three of you to answer. Roy, forgive me, I'm going to paraphrase, but Roy says, we desire opportunity, but we want to ensure we place our students onto a path of success and not frustration and discouragement. So how do we build effective counseling skills to interview, evaluate, help new students to ensure they're prepared? Any thoughts on that?
I've talked a lot, so
this is right in your wheelhouse, though, right? I mean, we've got our Gen 101 introductory course, and a lot of work going in there. So take it away.
I've already spoken too much, though. That's
no, you got this.
So Roy, so I would just turn it over to James Bond, Connie Lauer, Teresa Handy, Allie Reef, Jen Vogt. This is precisely the conundrum, right? So, we oversee the entry point class for undergraduate students. And I think we do a great job of systematically integrating skills over the general education experience that develop precisely what you're talking about here: time management skills, effective communication, goal setting. And then I know that career services has a lot of opportunities for students to work on, like how to interview. What does a good CV or resume look like, to get feedback on that? But it's constantly the thing that, that's difficult. But I think that, especially in the realm of Chat GPT, right, or AI in general, to prove knowledge, I think we're actually going to have to go to a model where there's more talking, where students actually prove their knowledge through discussing what they know. I think that's a great way to show that they're not cheating and things like that. But it also relates, I think, Roy, to what you're saying here is like that oral communication and that ability to present yourself and your knowledge and your skill is extremely important. And I think that we will enhance that throughout general education. I do want to say, on a side note, at least 50% of our students are going right from Gen 101 into their program courses based on transfer credit. And then of the other 50%, they have transfer credits from all over the place. And so we don't necessarily work with our students, all of our students, or even a majority of our students through the development of those skills. Only the students with 0 credits, 3 credits, 6 credits are the ones that actually are getting the full buffet of what we have to offer in general education. So if, for all of you who are not teaching in gen ed, if you have a student who can't write, please don't blame it on us. And I don't want to pass the buck, right? But they might have taken their writing class at a community college 10 years ago, you know? They might have not taken any gen eds. And so please have good intent with your colleagues in the general education experience. And of course, we will take responsibility when those students have gone through our gen ed and we haven't been able to upskill them appropriately. But anyway, please keep that in mind, that our students are just all over the place. And really, that's where I think it's important for the programs to have some feedback on writing and feedback on communication. Like and WASC says this, right? General education should be integrated throughout the program into upper division courses. And so please don't think in your head like, oh, well, they should be able to write, so I don't need to focus on writing. Like a little bit of writing help, a little bit of oral presentation skill help is great and is necessary for our institution and skill development for students.
Thank you, Justin. And thank you, Roy. It's a great observation and one that we are constantly working to overcome and to figure out that equation. So thank you, everybody. Thank you to our panelists, Rebecca, Justin, Lindsay. You've given us so much to think about. I really encourage everybody to continue thinking, continue talking, sharing ideas. Think about how we turn the concepts of open access, our responsibility as an open access institution. How do we take that and turn it into action for our students? This is something that we really need to work on together. And that way, when we celebrate our success, we're doing that together too. Any final thoughts from the TLC group? Any messages that we need to give to attendees? All right, I'm going to take the silence as a no. Enjoy the rest of the sessions at TLC, engage in the community boards. I look forward to seeing you all again. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.